nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello, this is Gerard Butler saying hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast with my Scottish accent that sounds not a million miles away from Christopher Lambert in Highlander. Hi, everybody. That only works, I should stress, that only works in an audio format, that joke. Doesn't work when you can actually see that it's me saying it live. That was my best Gerard Butler. What do you think, John? Happy with that Gerard Butler impression?
Do you know, I really liked how you not only encapsulated the deep voice and that you were Gerard Butler to me. However, I also like that you went for the slight, the accent wavered as well. You sort of threw a little bit of American in there, a little bit your own accent. I thought it was magnificent. Thank you for that.
Thank you, John. Johnny, you a big fan of my Gerard Butler impression? I've been working that for all of 10 minutes before you came on air tonight.
Okay, that's good, because I thought you were going to say something other than 10 minutes, and that would have been an issue. It was, certainly an accent that you did.
In a way, the same kind of accent that Gerard Butler did during the squad announcement.
Which is what you were going for.
He went to school with my uncle, Gerard Butler. So he's actually from Borheed, but he obviously doesn't sound like that anymore.
No, he spent too much time in America, too much time filming films like P.S. I Love You.
Hey, that's a good film. Don't you go knocking that now.
Did you know, Lisa, that Gerard Butler makes the amount of Gerard Butler makes per film is the same as the domestic rugby budget for Scottish Rugby?
I'm not even surprised, to be honest. I don't know if that is he gets paid not enough, or I don't know who that's more insulting to. Is that more insulting to us or more insulting to him?
I don't think there's no winners here, really, is there? Let's be honest.
No, probably not.
He's stealing a living based on that accent. I've now just upset Gerard Butler fans because I think there's a perfect crossover.
Oh, that froze him.
I love a bit of Gerard Butler.
Oh yeah, but I still insult him. I think it's fair. I don't know if Cammy's died.
Frozen right now.
Yeah, I think Cammy
I'm going to
might
have to leave and come back.
Which, it's going to put me over in that corner. Oh, here we go. I was wearing my France top because I was like, I am seriously in assistant mode tonight. I'm not taking it. Right. Anyway, since Cammy's left us, welcome to the podcast, guys. If you're joining us for the first time, hello. We haven't even introduced you, Lisa. So you just got to dig in about P.S. I Love You, which I agree. Classic movie. How are you, Lisa?
I'm good, thank you. Good, very good. Just this annoying rugby thing getting in the way now. So
it's always problematic when it does that, isn't it?
Who likes it? I mean, why do we do it? Why do we go rugby?
I mean, why would we give up our time to do it and talk about it and all that garbage, honestly. I don't know.
Who knows?
Speaking of talking about it, Cammy's back.
I am. Sorry, my internet
Yay.
connection went a bit weird and squiffy. I need to get that sorted. Oh, and Craig's with us now.
So
Hello,
did mine,
Craig
and it was
Manson.
as soon as Craig Manson appeared.
That's what did it. Craig,
Hello.
Craig, who was going to take a knee tonight, and I wasn't sure it was something that either Craig or I should do at
Nah,
our
I'm
age.
not having this.
Good evening, all. How are we doing?
Craig's back from training. Hello, Craig Manson. We're all good, thank you. Hopefully, my internet connection will hold now. I don't know what's going on with it. There should be no problems with these anyway. Hello,
Hoping that,
everybody. You're all welcome to Scottish Rugby. I'll try and avoid doing any Gerard Butler impressions for the rest of the evening now. I'll put them to one side. If you are
This
watching
is
this
our
live, you're
most
watching this.
pre-season form introduction that we've had in some time, by the way. This is ropey.
Thanks, Johnny. So yeah, if you're watching us live on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you are listening to us, you can listen to us on any good podcast apps like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere else you can get your podcast these days. I don't know if Podbean's still a thing. There were lots of weird podcast apps around when we first started doing this. I don't know if they still exist anymore. We were on Audio Boom for a while. Don't even know if that's still going. Who knows? Anyway, we're still here. There's a lot of news to get through tonight. Lots of bits and bobs to get through. We've got France and Scotland to talk about. We've got the Scotland squad announcement to talk about as well. However, I thought first of all it's worth just touching on the announcement of I'll get this right, the WXV2, I think I've got that right, fixtures that are going to be happening very soon. Scotland's fixtures have been announced. This is the kind of, it's not a World Cup. It's a tournament for international women's teams. Scotland are in the second tier of that tournament and have had fixtures announced against South Africa, the USA, and Japan. They are also in a pool with Samoa and Italy, although they don't play them. But the team with the most points at the end of the pool will win a trophy, presumably. The games are all being played in South Africa, which is great because it means from a time point of view, it means that we broadcast at a reasonable hour of the day. Lisa, last time we spoke about this, we didn't have many details of the tournament. We get a bit more kind of meat on the bones now. One of the big things is, I suppose, that it's an opportunity once a year for Scotland to play teams that they wouldn't necessarily play on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of branch out, obviously from a Scotland point of view and having obviously these different opponents. But I think for a global calendar sort of thing as well, it's quite nice that the other nations are able to test themselves in the water against like some of the Six Nations teams, some of like what we kind of categorize as tier 1 nations. So I think it'll be a good tester to see, especially so soon after the most recent World Cup, and obviously with only a couple of years to go into the next one. It'll be quite good to kind of see and test the waters of where things are, how people are going. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how we go. So we've played South Africa before. We also went over there for a tour not so long ago. So it'll be good to kind of see how things have developed since then. Obviously played Japan a couple of times with Louise Dalglish coaching over there still, I think. And the USA, I think, will be another interesting test. I know they're looking for a new head coach at the moment, so how that's going to pan out will be interesting. But yeah, definitely two very physical teams and one very, very quick and ambitious team. So they'll definitely test all game plans and all strengths.
And Craig, I suppose we've said before on this podcast that the women's rugby shouldn't look to try and replicate the pattern of men's rugby, which is just based on tradition of kind of autumn tests. They come up here, summer tests, we go down there. Six Nations and the Super Rugby tournament kind of happen in their own little bubbles. It is, I suppose, an opportunity once a year now, outside of World Cup years, for teams to go and test themselves. And there is the incentive then to do well in the Six Nations, because that then determines on an annual basis which tier of the World Tournament you're going to play in.
Yeah, and I think the big thing really, and I'm sure Lisa will attest to this, is allowing players to play more rugby at international level. And okay, that we don't want to go as far as the men's game where we're starting to talk about player welfare because there's maybe too many games. But I think there are many people, many players within, especially just to talk about ourselves, the Scotland women's setup that could have probably had far more Scotland caps if they had more games to play. So I think the new tournament will work incredibly well. We just have to make sure that everyone who's playing it is monetized correctly and also get the opportunities that they deserve. And then if that works, then I think it'll be good. We just need to give it a chance, I guess. I think have I gone quiet, or is Cammy gone quiet?
Yeah, I'm switching between mics. John was telling me
there we go.
There we go. It was Craig. You were telling me I was on a computer mic, and I was because my USB socket had switched out.
There we go.
John, I was just saying I suppose that the good thing as well about this is it's a chance to play more teams, unlike particularly in the summer tours where you go out and you play apart from Scotland, but teams go and play out the same team 3 times. This is an opportunity to play more teams and get more familiar with those teams that are outside the Six Nations.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I don't think the women's game is necessarily plagued with the same, as you rightly said, that same traditionalism and that same elitism when it comes to teams playing teams. I think familiarity does breed contempt, and it does, fans will appreciate getting to see new teams. It is always nice when you don't see it much in the men's game, but obviously with Georgia kind of coming to the fore a wee bit in maybe the last 5 to 10 years, it's been great to see these teams coming through, and you do get a chance to see other teams. I would love Scotland in a World Cup to get drawn against, a team we've not played in many years, like a Kenya or someone like that. Hell, even Portugal. It's been 2007 since we last played Portugal. So I think it's a great opportunity for the women's game just to really set their stall that this is something they do, and make sure they steer away from those kind of long multi-game tours that probably are a bit of a blight on the men's game.
I suppose, Johnny, the difficulty is, though, from a scheduling point of view, and again we picked up on this with the kind of refereeing appointments for the World Cup, that Holly Davidson hasn't gone to the World Cup, but she's refereeing in the WXV tournament. It does clash a little bit with the World Cup because it comes. I think the first game is on the 14th, which is my maths is right, is around the quarterfinals of the World Cup. What we've seen with the Six Nations is having that separation has benefited, I think, the women's game from an audience point of view. So I don't know whether it could go two ways. I guess it comes at the tail end of the men's World Cup. You get a swell of interest in the sport, and then there's something to kind of pass people into. But similarly, there is a risk that it gets lost.
I guess the one thing that Scotland have got going for them is quite probably the men's team will be home by the quarterfinals. So we'll be looking for something to do, and then as you're right, I think basically the next weekend. So we can maybe just sort of funnel people that way.
What's your take on that, Lisa, then? Because I mean, with the Six Nations, it has benefited, I think, from a bit of a gap between the kind of men's tournament and then the women's tournament. That separation seems to have kind of helped grow the audience a bit. Do you think launching in a World Cup year is maybe a bit going to cause a few difficulties, or do you think the fact that there'll be an interest in rugby from people who don't watch that often might help?
I think the worrying thing is because it's so late into the World Cup, and you'd arguably say it's the exciting games. People have given a decision and a choice, with obviously it basically being in the exact same time zone as France. You'd think people might be more inclined to watch the men's like quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. I think having a bit of separation has made such a massive difference because it literally just everyone gets to the end of the Six Nations. It's like, oh, I've got the Rugby Blues. What can I do instead? There's nothing really to watch. Well, here's the Women's Six Nations straight afterwards. So I think having that slight separation means it basically just rolls from one to another. And I think that's definitely added and definitely helped. So yeah, I've got a slight concern it might not get as many numbers as expected, and like especially with the last last 2 weekends clashing with the WXV1 as well. It'll be interesting to see how numbers fluctuate in terms of viewing figures and actually how the hell do we actually watch it in Scotland as a next thing, because I'm imagining that's all going to be online. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if it has as much of an impact as we think it might do. But yeah, I think it maybe won't get as much as we expect, as much as we hope.
Yeah. Craig, you were going to make a point before I rudely cut in.
No, I was just, I was really just amazed at Johnny's hopefulness there. I was, he was cheering me. He was cheering me up after the squad announcement today. That we're not. Why bother announce a squad? We're not going to do anything at the World Cup anyway. So, but anyway, that was all I was. I was being glib.
Plus a change, Craig. Plus a change. Anything else on the women's 15? I think that's kind of we've covered kind of most of the announcement for the minute. It's something we will cover. As Johnny said, regardless of whether Scotland progress from the pool or not, we will cover it on the podcast. We can rest assured, and we will. I don't know, John. Are you the Eddie Jones of Scottish rugby? Are you going to kind of come out against the negativity of Scotland fans and keep telling everybody off for being negative?
Oh, that would be some role for me this summer, wouldn't it? Like that would really throw the cat amongst the pigeons. I don't know. We'll see. Keep it,
I should get that on. I need to get that on a little sound loop. Is anytime somebody says something negative of just the Eddie Jones clip, stop being negative, mate.
Stop being negative, mate.
We should just have a set of sayings on something a button that we push on the podcast.
I can record that for you, Cam, if you want. I'll record that. Stop being negative, mate, for you, and you can use that whenever you want.
Yeah, we'll have it as a little button that I press during the World Cup. Yeah. Stop being negative, mate. Yeah, we'll seamlessly that kind of moves us into the World Cup. Speaking of the World Cup and the fact that it clashes with the far superior WXV2 tier tournament that probably, as Johnny says, we'll all be watching rather than the Men's World Cup at that point. We had the squad announcement for Scotland this week in front of 3 bridges. I don't know. There's some quite interesting camera angles to try and fit 3 bridges in the entire 33-man squad in, but they managed it somehow. John, given what we had predicted,
yep,
there weren't too many surprises in that squad announcement.
No, I mean, if you go by what I predicted, which at the time I might have been not necessarily speaking my truth, then obviously Sam Johnson's the big like leave out here. But no, I mean realistically, I described it as the least exciting Scottish World Cup squad in terms of surprises that there's ever been. You could pretty much have nailed down 35 players that would go into that 33, and it was kind of toss of the coin for the other 2. So, I think and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a decent thing for how this team's building. And, Johnny's point about not getting out of the group, I've said it throughout this World Cup cycle that, since the draw's been made, we're not getting out of the group. But, damn, they're giving me some hope, which I don't like. And I don't know if Cammy's just staring really intently at me, or if he's kind of freaked out here.
No, I froze. I froze. I don't know what's happening with my internet tonight. It's going crazy. I wasn't freaked out by it, John.
Mine's the same.
Staring through my soul. I'm like, oh my days.
That's it. Speaking of kind of getting the hope a little bit, we said last week that we thought Jamie Dobie might go ahead of Ali Price because it would be nice to take him in a sort of George Horn way to get him into that sort of camp experience. We thought that Murphy and Walker might go instead of Javin for basically the same reason. And actually, the fact that Ali Price and Javin Sebastian have been picked kind of makes me think that they're leaning towards possibly being able to do something in this World Cup, which is quite exciting. I think they've kind of, rather by going Price and Sebastian rather than Dobie and Walker, I think they're kind of saying and are thinking to themselves at least, if all 33 are going in firing on all cylinders, that actually this is a team that could probably cost you, John. I think the hope is spreading.
Yeah. So it's really quite scary. It's not good. We know that's what kills us. So
I preferred it a lot better when France and when South Africa and Ireland weren't talking about us at all.
Yeah.
Now that South Africa and Ireland are both like, oh, I've just spotted that Scotland are quite good. I don't like it. I liked it when they were fighting amongst themselves and we could sneak up on them.
I like that element of surprise.
Yeah, they were quite funny. The South African press were covering it, and we're starting to make our way onto their television programs, and they're talking about our attack, and they're actually looking at what Russell and Tuipulotu are doing, which annoys me slightly.
But I think this is the thing, though. I think it's naive to think that South Africa and Ireland aren't doing their analysis anyway. Because they will be. Like the press doing the analysis is completely different to what the teams are doing. The absolutely South Africa and Ireland aren't going to be sat there just going, "Oh, we'll beat Scotland." There will be analysis. There will be some deep analysis going on of what's happened. I think, if anything, particularly in that first game, that first France test, we gave nothing away in the first half, but that was to our detriment.
Maybe that was the play. Maybe we were trying to convince them that they didn't need to do any analysis in that first half. We've obviously speculated about what we've tried to do, but they're just like, they are so rubbish. We just don't need to do anything. Let's just turn up.
Maybe we have given away the fact. Sorry, Lucinio.
I was just saying, maybe we're just going for the England approach and just playing no rugby, just to be like, you know what? Don't bother about us. We're not really interested.
If they turn up and they play rugby this tournament, I am going to be like that. My faith in rugby is going to be shook to the core. It's not acceptable.
Maybe it's a new coaching mantra. Who knows?
The greatest sleight of hand ever played in rugby. we're gonna narrowly lose to Wales and plummet down the rankings just ahead of the World Cup, and then turn up and actually play some proper rugby.
Make the final. Who knows?
5B chess from I think worse England teams have made finals. So that's the thing.
Well,
they're literally one big win away from making a final. It's just terrifying.
Not to give everybody the hopes, but I think since professionalism, the fifth place team in the world has always made a final, and we're only fifth.
We've still got Georgia to go. Let's not say anything.
Yeah.
So that's a stat from Rowan.
Yeah, well, the thing is that finally I was listening to some of the podcasts about the squad launch, and the people Finn Russell especially started piping up about Tonga, and people are starting to finally talk about Tonga, and how that there's a squad that we're going to chip over. If we'll get all excited about maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, beating South Africa, and then all of a sudden come along Tonga, and it's like, welcome to real life,
Yeah, I think that it's such a Scottish mentality. I think Finn Russell's right to point it out, because they have some amazing individuals, but it's such a Scottish mentality to believe that would be our banana skin, But they'll have to be at their best to beat them. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Your internet is being a bit poop, Cam. It's true. But we will continue.
It is being pooped tonight.
We will continue on.
I'll struggle on.
Yes. Yes. See, mine normally goes out and then just comes back in, and then it's normally okay for a bit. But we're talking about the squad. Lisa, Johnny, Craig, over to you guys in terms of the squad. No surprises. How are we going to go, and why was Gregor Townsend staring so adoringly at Jamie Ritchie?
Well, don't we all?
Wouldn't you?
Not the way he was looking at Craig.
I wasn't cheering either. That was weird.
It was so creepy, right?
Can I give you a bit of a surprise or amazing admission?
Yes.
I listened
I'm
to
more
the
concerned.
older. Sorry, what are you going to say, John?
He was trying to interject with something, and then his internet
Aye.
pooped out. So
Yeah,
Craig,
it's-
let's continue. Give us your
I
revelation.
was quite amazed. I was listening to the old Australian talk, and I really quite like him now. And I'm a bit like, oh my god, what am I doing here? He's sounds really intelligent and actually not fazed by things, and he actually was very forthright about of course he wanted to play for Australia and how it's but obviously he's incredibly happy in Scotland and playing for Scotland, and it's like, fine, he's actually not turned around and started saying, well, when Flower of Scotland plays, there's tears well up from inside of me. He said, no, I'm just what motivates me is making sure I'm there for the boys and making sure I don't let them down. And he was quite frank. The only thing that slapped him back down to me thinking he's still an aged Australian is that he doesn't want to try square sausage or lawn sausage on a roll, and he also says he's never tried it and doesn't want to. So it's like, how dare he?
That is fair. I mean, square sausage is pretty mighty. Let's be honest.
I bet he's had black pudding and cheese on a roll though.
I bet he has.
No, well, he was complaining that he hadn't. He's never seen just bacon on a roll until he came to Scotland. It always had some egg, and then he said, some cheese. And I'm like, Philistine, get yourself back down there with all the convicts, I tell you.
Are you genuinely suggesting bacon and cheese is not allowed? Craig, you've got some
Bacon-
weird takes on rolls.
It's just this whole thing of like grated cheese added to a good breakfast roll just ruins it.
A great breakfast roll.
Yeah.
Catch yourself
Ba-
on, man. Said.
Puts
Bacon
the
and egg
great
roll is a
in
great
bacon.
breakfast roll.
Where's the tatty's gone? That's all I'm saying.
Do you like
Well,
it?
that's true. Well,
Tatty's gone needs to
that's
be there.
quickly.
Although,
As-
to be fair,
as-
if you think cheese is weird, I know someone who puts bacon and jam on a roll.
No,
Yeah, no, that's good.
bacon,
Oh, hang on.
bacon jam is a different thing, but bacon and jam is wrong. That's someone who's just read a recipe wrong.
No, she swears by it. She's like, this is the greatest thing for breakfast. I'm like, you're just.
Is this you speaking for a friend, Lisa, or is that?
Oh dear God, I would never put jam on that. Dear God, no. I know I'm odd, but I'm not that odd.
Cammy, you going to get us back on track here?
I don't know. I think bacon, but you got bacon and jam. That's what they kicked my internet into gear. It's working again. Like, bacon and jam though. Ooh, there's a thought.
You see, the thing is, I'm a big convert to.
no.
I love pancakes and bacon with maple syrup. So you're kind of.
That's fine, but not when
Yeah,
it's like
that's all
strawberry
right,
jam.
Not
Cranberry
Are we
sauce.
talking like? Are we talking
We'll go there.
smooth strawberry jam? Are we talking
talking
smooth
seeded.
strawberry jam or like with seeds in?
Seeded.
Oh no!
Seeded.
Oh
Seeded.
no!
Oh,
Yeah.
that's even better. No, I see that as a bit crunch.
No!
Oh my God.
seeded jam is the devil.
Fact.
Oh
Craig's right.
no, something
No,
that's
it's
nice.
not.
Good little
That's just
raspberry seeded jam's
Yeah.
amazing.
Seeded jam. Why would you go for smooth jam?
You got listen.
That's
I'm getting
just
old.
jelly.
I have to have everything smooth for me nowadays.
Craig purees all his meals.
Apart from the roll, I quite like a roll with the puree on it.
Roll and puree. That's great. Right, we know what you're getting at Murrayfield next, Craig.
excuse me, pal. See that burger with cheese? Could you puree it for me and put it in the roll, please?
Black pudding and cheese roll. Could you puree
Aye.
that up for me, mate?
That's an extra tenner.
Yeah. So the squad's a much, and a scam, to answer your question.
It's more or less exactly what we said it would be. Not to blow our own trumpet or anything.
Again, I can't claim any credit because I went rogue that night.
Aye. Apart from you
Yeah,
screaming and squealing about Sam Johnson, everybody else was right.
I said McInally was going as well, which
was bonkers, and just clearly you were high as well.
Well, I said Simon Berger was going and then he retired. So
So really,
we all said, everybody said Stuart Hogg was going.
How wrong we all were.
Did I actually? I might not have actually. That's the sort of mad stuff I was doing that night. So, did I get that right?
Oh, you actually might not have.
You may well have done it.
Now that you mention it.
Yep. So, giveth with one hand, taketh away with Sam Johnson the other. I love being
John, the sage of Scottish rugby, who had it. It's I mean, it was fairly expected. I think probably the one that we didn't get, Craig, was Luke Crosby. I think he wasn't on our list. Neither was Javan Sebastian. Understandably, I think you made a big push from at the time.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's one of those situations. No matter what John Anderson says, he wouldn't be in a Scotland shirt if he was as crap as Mr. Anderson said he was. I think he's an effective tight head prop.
Did you watch Scotland between about 2004 and 2011, Craig? Because some real bad people ended up in Scotland shirts. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Let's just say that now that we're able to import quite a lot of Scottish people from the colonies, the issue is that we then, we have got a lot of competition for spaces. Apart from obviously prop, we're kind of tight at prop, and I think I do think he made a difference in the first French game, and I'm excited to see what he could. I would like to see him perform well because he's now been selected to go into the Rugby World Cup. On the other side of things, Luke Crosby, I wanted him to go because I really do believe in him as a back rower. But on the other side of things, we have got some fantastic back rowers available. So it was a question mark over him whether he was going to go or not. But I'm really pleased for him because, as I say, it's he's deserving. Every time he's been on the pitch for Edinburgh or for Scotland, he's given everything he possibly can.
Yeah, definitely, Craig. I have to agree. It was the name I probably looked out for in the team announcement as well. It was probably that, one of the two kind of toss of a coin ones for me, and it was great to see him there. Again, there is that argument of where does he fit in to what is just unbelievable strength and depth in the back row, but I'm sure he'll hopefully get some game time. And let's be fair, if Scotland are planning to go deep into this tournament, that whole squad are going to have to get some game time, and injuries do occur. When you're Scottish, they occur more frequently than they have done recently. So, touch wood, no knee fairies, please. But yeah, no, it's good to see him in there.
I think that's the interesting thing with depth, isn't it? Because we've got Gregor Townsend today, yesterday as it was, but it reported today, Lisa, talking about everybody's going to be in for the Georgia game. So he's going full strength for the Georgia game because everyone needs to be fit. This is the last chance to get to play before South Africa. And I guess as much as fans, we want everybody wrapped in cotton wool for the first game, it's also essential that everyone gets a good run out before a tournament like a World Cup.
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially when your first game is such a pinnacle one, and arguably one that the rest of our competition is probably going to be decided on, you do want to give your combinations as much time as possible so that when they do get to the South Africa game, everything's firing. They're not taking 10, 20 minutes to get themselves into the game and remember how everyone works and everyone plays. It's one of those nature of the beast things. You've just got to hope that all prep's gone in well, no freak accidents or whatever happens. But you've just got to think of the longer picture rather than saying, "Oh, we'll hold them back," which will end up being a detriment to them as a player and the squad. So I think you need to. He's done the right thing in terms of it going as full noise as humanly possible, because it's only going to hold us in good stead for that South Africa match. Because think about it, South Africa got another 2 matches to go until they play us against Wales and England. So they've got pretty good, next 2 games to go into off the back of Rugby Championship. We've got just 1 now, and we're kind of hoping that everything kind of pans out pretty well from that, and there's not anything too drastic we need to work on, like, I don't know, line-outs or something.
One of the things that was interesting today, Johnny, again, was a quote from Jamie Ritchie talking about the mood in camp and everyone getting on together. And there was a suggestion, I suppose, that maybe in 2019 the squad had maybe been a bit more, I don't want to say fractured or segmented in a way. And there was kind of some, I remember there was a video of a few of the older players teasing Darcy Graham over the fact his dad had been in Gladiators. And you just wonder how cohesive the squad was in Japan compared to kind of this squad, which, if we're to believe Jamie Ritchie, is much more together. And that's got to be important going into, a tournament like this where you're away from home for long periods and you're in a camp. So cohesiveness is going to be fairly important.
Yeah, and I think even before that interview, you could kind of see a bit in these last 2 French games in particular that the team seems to be enjoying themselves, which is massively important. Like, you cannot overstate how important it is that you're enjoying what you're doing. Like, at the end of the day, it's the same as any other job. If you hate your job and you're not having fun and you don't like anyone you work with, you're not going to do a good job. And, being on the national team is not any different to that. And every time they've gone out this summer, they've looked like they're having fun. Like, Finn looks really relaxed. He looks like he's enjoying himself. Everyone around seems to be having fun. And that is massive to get yourself in a sort of relaxed enough space that if they want to trouble people this tournament, they're going to have to be in that sort of mindset.
I mean, Lisa, you've been obviously in camps before, and I think we all look from the outside in, and we would love to think the guys are best mates and all get together and they're being together all the time. But that can't possibly be to have 33 people that get on 100% of the time is going to be impossible. There must be people, personal relationships with it, professional relationships with, and how do you manage that in those sorts of environments for when you're away for so long?
I think it's one of those things we just don't try and not force it, because I know enforced fun and forced relationships, it's not going to end well, because people are just going to be like, well, I don't really want to do this, don't really bother. And I think it's just realizing that, there is a common ground of you are here to play rugby. You will naturally hang out with people that either you're at a club with or you've known for a long time or whatever. That's just natural. It's just the nature of the beast. But I think when it gets to this, on pitch stuff, most of it just gets canned. There's definitely been multiple camps and squads where people haven't gotten on, or there's been massive breakdowns and stuff like that we've then, sorry, my dog's going absolutely mental. But yeah, there's been times where that's happened, but it's one of those things where you've just got to get on with it. Again, like you were saying earlier about a working relationship, same things might happen at work. You might not get on with people's opinions, but at the end of the day, you got to try and work together. It is a struggle. You're never going to have a full squad who are all going out together. All 33 are going out for coffees and having dinner and what have you. It's just not realistic, nor is it ever going to happen. But I think it's just they have that common goal that everyone's working towards, which is getting as far as possible in this World Cup. And I think that's what is helping and what motivates them to kind of be as social as humanly possible with people they might not like nor get on with.
Interestingly on that point as well, I don't know if you guys have seen the George Horn interview. He done the kind of brief snippet where he was talking about the Kyle Steyn try and talking about them being roommates and how they spend so much time talking about like plans they're making for the sort of 9 and 11, and how they were talking about how the try they scored against France was completely unplanned. I thought it was so nice to see, and obviously Craig and Johnny, you guys know, or I've spent time around the Horns. It was so nice. He just looked so like gleeful and happy that and Steno is not exactly known for like being the most smiley person in the world, but he was kind of like, actually kind of gushing with happiness that something they'd kind of tried together as a pair that like they just seem like the most unlikely kind of room pairing that I've come across. So it was just I wanted to bring it up. It was so nice to see. We'll continue. We've lost the master of ceremonies himself. I think the internet has finally eaten him, which, given some of the nonsense we've seen on the internet over the last kind of couple of weeks and months, is not a surprise. Squad's been announced, Craig. We'll look ahead now. As I've said, Georgia, we're expecting probably quite full noise. Based on where other teams are at, how far can Scotland go in this tournament? Let's just cut to the chase.
I'm not at Johnny levels of pessimism with Scotland. And you know me, I said that I was fully thoughtful that Edinburgh were going to win the URC. So maybe
yes on this.
So I'm very positive all the time. I don't go for all the doer side of things of, we're never going to get out this group. It's the pool of death. It's this and that and the other. I think it's an opportunity for Scotland. I think this whole pool is an opportunity for Scotland to show that they are fifth in the world and they can do a great job. My only concern is that if they go missing at some point, it's they've just, just as everyone has said, and it's been said over and over again, if you ship 20 points at the beginning of the match against South Africa, you will not claw that back against South Africa. But what I would say, however, is that South Africa are not the force that people think they are at this moment in time. So, we have an opportunity. And, there's a mixture of they will be tired because they're just coming out the Rugby Championship, as Lisa said. So, there's opportunities there. We've got, I actually think on the other side of things, I think that Ireland are at the point of being overrated at this moment in time. And I think there's going to be a situation where everyone just thinks it's an automatic in fact, I've heard people say that they're expecting it to be an Ireland-France final, and it's like, well, nothing gets us up and ready to play a game than people saying that, absolutely putting us aside and discounting us completely. So I think, I personally think we've got the squad depth, we've got the coaches in place, especially with Brad Moore being involved. We've got an opportunity. So, I really am positive about it.
How worrying, Johnny, will that 20 minutes at the weekend, say 15 minutes if we're being kind, just after half-time, obviously Scotland didn't play for the first half at Murrayfield, came out of the blocks absolutely, all guns blazing at Saint-Etienne, and then second half switched off and shipped quite a few points. How concerning will that be?
It's a huge concern, I think. I think that is now the biggest issue. Scotland have got over quite a lot of their other issues in the last couple of years, but we're in a pool with two teams where you cannot, like Craig said, you cannot have that switch off. There are other teams in this World Cup where maybe we could. I mean, we've just shown on Saturday that we could do it against France. I think you could probably do it against Australia. You could do it against a couple of the others, but South Africa and Ireland, if you switch off for long enough to let them score some points, they'll throttle you and you will not score again. So it's a massive worry, and it's the thing that really concerns me is that Scotland absolutely at this point can beat anyone. Scotland could get out of that group, I think, fairly handily. The only problem with it is that in order to do that, they've got to play basically their World Cup final twice in the pool stages.
Yeah.
They've got to put together their two best performances, those slip-ups twice, just to get into the quarterfinals, to then play either France or the All Blacks. So it's a lot of very, very, very difficult games, is my only concern. And the two in the pool stages probably will be two of the hardest that we'll play, because those teams are just ruthless.
And just coming back to you, Lisa, in terms of Craig's obviously touched on South Africa, not the force they possibly have been played up to be. How much of that is down to the, obviously, South Africa have got massive injury concerns in a few of the key positions and a few of the key players. Do you think that's playing a part, or is it something wider? Is South African rugby not at that 2019 pinnacle that they were at?
I think it's a combination of both. You look at the players that are injured, and they had such a big impact in 2019. Obviously, with Canny and stuff like that, and he was lauded as being one of the best centres in the world for a number of years, and now all of a sudden they're not going to be there, and they're putting their hat on, obviously, Andre Esterhuizen, and potentially playing a little bit of a different way than they have done before. I think it's, like you said before, they're so clinical that if there is any little chink in the armour, they will just absolutely go for it. And with that pack as well, they do give up a lot of worries, and a lot of worries that you don't normally come up against in Six Nations. They're annoying because you literally have no idea how they're going to play sometimes, in terms of, are they going to start pretty well, in which case you're going to hide into nothing, or are they going to give you a little bit of an inch at the start and you can kind of keep yourself clawing in. I think they are completely different in many ways to the 2019 team that they had, but they do have the potential to build during the tournament to then get up to those sort of levels again with what hard route they have to get into semi-finals, finals. It is going to be pretty ruthless for them to get to that point, but I think they're more beatable than they have been of late. I think before, looking at their squad selection stuff, if you'd have said, here, we're going to have Ireland and South Africa and stuff in our pool, what games we're going to win, you wouldn't even thought South Africa being up there. But now there's actually a little bit of hope, dare I say it, that we may actually get a decent result against South Africa that first game and hopefully catch them off the boil.
Cammy is coming back with us now. Cammy's having internet trouble.
Hello,
Cammy. Yeah, we're talking about South Africa just now. We're talking about injury concerns and stuff like that. I'll come to you just now in terms of the. Sorry, this just feels very weird. Mid podcast, they switch roles. I'm a bit confused. Like, whoa, this is strange. So the South African teams and a lot of the South African players now playing in the URC, how much of an impact do you think that has on how much the Scottish players, obviously based at Glasgow and Edinburgh, will be more comfortable coming up against, your Etzebeths and the like? Do you think that's going to help Scotland?
I think it takes a little bit of the fear is probably the wrong word, but the unknown out of it. So if you play these guys, what do we used to play South Africa once every 3-4 years in the autumn, and now you're playing them twice a year in the URC, that's different, because all of a sudden it's someone that you're seeing regularly, someone that you have maybe has been part of a team that you've beaten or run close, and these things matter. I mean, we've run South Africa close. We've played good games against them. We've scored tries against them. I think there is a mentality now in this Scotland team that knows that if we stay in games, I think that's why these two France tests have been really important. Even if we go behind by a couple of tries, there is a way back into these games. And so I think that's the big step forward the Scotland team has taken. I think removing the South Africa as an unknown quantity, and maybe as a, I mean, England's a good example of that. I think for years, England at Twickenham was the big unknown for Scotland. We haven't beaten them since 1980. We haven't beaten them since 1983. So it becomes this thing that it's England and it's Twickenham, and that's gone now. That just doesn't exist for this current crop of Scotland players. And I think playing the South African teams and the South African players regularly takes that out of the equation. It's not these great guys that are playing Super Rugby, and Super Rugby is held to be the best thing and the best rugby in the world that everyone must look up to, and we must worship at the altar of the Southern Hemisphere rugby. These are just guys in the URC now. These are just the guys that you play every week, and that's got to help. I mean, it hasn't helped with Ireland. It's not like we've kind of play Leinster week in, week out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no bother, it's just Ireland. So it helps to an extent of they are now a known quantity, and it maybe takes a little bit of the kind of, I suppose, the hero worship out of it a little bit. These are just other guys playing rugby, but it's still a tough test.
Yeah, it takes almost takes away the mystique, but you're still left with bloody good rugby players at the end of it. So let's segue slightly. Craig, obviously, we've now had 2 fixtures against, what seems like all of France has played in the games we've played. That was as close as we've seen to France at full noise. They've had a couple of injury blows as well, a couple of big injury blows in Ntamack in particular. How good are this French team, and are they the World Cup favourites?
I would. Well, I have to. Well, everyone is saying that the superstar French team that came out against Scotland last weekend, they were all just rusty, and they were tired because the top 14's still been playing until a week, a couple of days before this French game, and they gave us all these reasons why France, weren't beating Scotland to the level that they expected. I think France still have this air about them. They have a team full of absolute superstars, and I love some of their players. Damien Penaud, I think he looks like he's running through molasses, but actually can score out of. He's actually going far quicker than you think he is when he runs. I think some of the players that are out there that are absolutely fantastic, but I still think they are very, very. They can be upset quite, and I think Scotland did that to them. They upset their rhythm, didn't let them play, and I think where Scotland is doing a good job, and is the fact that they're keeping the ball more. They're not kicking it to, the last thing you want to do is be kicking it back to France, who can then use their superstars to absolutely slap you around the head. So I think what I would, in the whole narrative of it all, it would be wonderful for France to win the World Cup if Scotland aren't going to. So for me, I think they have the ability to do it. What worries me is the All Blacks are looking more and more sharp. They have, everyone's written the All Blacks off because Ireland have beaten them a couple of times now, and they came up and we almost beat them at Murrayfield. So I think they're under the radar at this moment in time, and I think the All Blacks are going to come along and just go, remember us. So
anyone who thinks the All Blacks are going to arrive anything other than fully operational in a couple of weeks is absolutely dreaming.
Yeah, the Death Star is just about complete,
Oh, I've got so many visions in my head now. This is ridiculous. Johnny, right, we'll just do a quick round table. Okay, we're a couple of weeks out from the World Cup. Let's go for who's winning it at this stage, and who is your first big shock of the tournament?
I think the All Blacks are probably going to win. I'm looking at the other side of the draw from Scotland's pool, I think we're in this weird position where the strongest, most settled team in that side of the pool is Argentina. And they're going to shock a lot of people, I think, because they've had a couple of really good results recently. And every other team in that side of the draw is charitably absolute hat stand at the moment. And I think that side, anything could happen. So Argentina would be my dark horse for a big shock, but I think the All Blacks might win.
All Blacks might win it. Excellent. Lisa, same question to yourself. Who's your winner and who's your big shock? Doesn't have to be a dark horse. It could be someone going out early, but I'll leave it up to you. Big shock and winner.
I think winner. Annoyingly, the All Blacks always time it well for the World Cup. It's like that's their big goal. So I think I agree with Johnny in terms of I think All Blacks will probably be winning it. I think the biggest shock. I think Chile will do one. I think Chile will get a win.
Ooh, okay.
On that, they're looking pretty good. I mean, the dog also agrees. He's on fire today. Yeah, I think Chile will be the biggest shock, to be honest. I think, the way they play and stuff, I think they could definitely do one potentially over Samoa. Though, to be fair, that game against Japan is going to be an absolute dinger of fast, free-flowing rugby. Be great.
So we've got that screen. We've got an audio grab of that. Lisa saying Chile for the shock. Looking forward to that. I'm going to go and research Chilean rugby now, getting ready for the World Cup. Cammy, same to yourself. Who's winning? Who's your shock?
I think I go with everybody else. I think the All Blacks are probably. I mean, dark horses is the wrong word, but nobody's talking them up, and I think that they're playing well. They're kind of. I don't know. I think the All Blacks will do better than a lot of people think they will. I think for me, and this isn't just me playing mischief with our Welsh and English listeners, but I do think there is a scenario in how badly those games went for both Wales and England. I think on the day, Japan and Argentina are both capable of beating England, right? On the day. And that's like if England get the house in order, those games should be a formality and England should top the group. But Argentina are capable of beating England. A well-drilled Japan are capable of beating England. That's only 2 results, and all of a sudden England are out of the pool stage. The same with Wales. I actually think Wales are at more risk than England. Wales have got Fiji and Georgia in their pool. There's a scenario in which, Wales end up 4th in their pool, but and that's not unrealistic. So I think as much as we're in the pool of death, I'm confident that we will finish 3rd at the least. We're not going to finish any lower than 3rd, but there is a risk that Wales end up 4th. I don't know. Does that mean they have to qualify next time around? I don't know. That'd be fun.
Could we say, by the way, that it's not entirely out with the bounds of possibility that group of death and all included, Scotland are the only Lions country to go to the knockouts?
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious. That would be the most fun I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I wouldn't care what happens from then on in.
Yeah.
I'd have to shellac it in the quarterfinals.
We could lose 120-0 to the All Blacks, but if Wales, England, and Ireland all went out in the pool stages, I'd consider that a success.
That would be great, because then we could carry on the joke with asking the Irish what if say, well, we know what it feels like to be in a World Cup semi-final. Not in the professional era, you understand.
Before I come at you, Craig, does anybody care? You probably will remember this. First person to answer gets a beer next time I see you. What ranking were Wales in the world this time 4 years ago?
Number 1.
Absolutely spot on, Johnny.
Ooh,
Number 1. Number 1 in the world, and they're now 10th.
They made the semis, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like 1 kick away from the final.
Which is ridiculous.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, how far has the? It's fine though, because they've got Gatlin back. You know, they've got aging. Aging 7. We're fine.
Warren, I wouldn't have taken the job if I'd known things with this bad Gatland.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
To one of our people watching, I'm not going to bring your comment up, but you're not paying for this. This is the free bit. So
yeah. Come back in 5 minutes, Philip, and you'll find out what you're really paying for.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's Phil. I believe that's Phil. That's Phil Lewis.
It is.
Yeah.
I like Phil.
Yeah, you
It'll
don't
not work on Twitch, Phil. You'll have to switch to the Patreon feed.
If that's his problem, maybe he thinks he's paying for something. He's like paying his Patreon, but watching it on Twitch and getting nothing extra. Craig, winner and Big Shock before we finish this absolute madhouse up.
Well, you know, for me, I've already put my colours of watching for the All Blacks, and everyone seems to agree. So I'm going to go with France. I would like to see, you know, if we're not winning it, as I say, I would like to see France winning it. So I'm going to go with France. For me, that I'm really stuck. I'm sorry to give you two answers for everything, but you know, I'm old.
Fine.
So
we're only 3 minutes over, mate. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm old, so I'm allowed to be doddery. As far as I'm concerned, I think one of the big shocks will be Fiji. I think Fiji are going to slap a few teams around. But I think the big shock for me will be Ireland not doing the job that everyone thinks they're going to do.
Yeah, I think that's and that is manna to my ears. I need that in my soul, because obviously if I'm going to be on X or whatever it's called for any length of time in future, I'm going to have to continue to have Irish and Welsh fans being salty. It's going to be beautiful.
Obviously, I'm just fed up of us continually being told to shut up and stop talking about how fantastic we are. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, Irish fans, settle down. So anyway,
it's fine though, because the biggest shock for me is probably going to be when Ireland get excluded from the World Cup for playing a reanimated Johnny Sexton corpse at 10. And actually, that's against World Rugby guidelines. I'm pretty sure. There'll be some bylaw somewhere that doesn't allow you to play zombies. I'm pretty sure. If there isn't, World Rugby, could you sort that now?
One of the things I want to talk about in the Patreon is the Irish and French defence tactics, and there's a teaser for the Patreon of the second man taking out the people coming at the ruck, which Ireland and France both did. And I think they shot the load early because I think referees are now going to be watching that in the World Cup. But we'll pick up that in the Patreon.
I just want you.
On you go.
Sorry, on you. I just want to leave you with the thought, moving on from John's conversation about Johnny Sexton, is that Peter O'Mahony going full weekend at Bernie's with Johnny Sexton for the World Cup. It should be interesting.
So we'll pick up that we'll possibly pick up that as well, Craig. That's too good a lead to not go with. But we'll pick up what I'm now affectionately calling the SpongeBob defence of flopping like a fish in front of the onrushing defender. We'll pick that up in the Patreon. For what it's worth, I'm sticking with France. I've got the colours on. We're all good. Sticking with France for the win, but I do think Ireland might be genuinely, I think Ireland might find themselves. The hope is kicking in now. Damn it! If Ireland find themselves out in the group stages, it will be utterly hilarious, and I may cry with laughter. Barring that, we've got a hierarchy: Ireland, Wales, England. Nobody else really. I don't really care.
Hang on, I'm not sure about. Let's pick this up in the Patreon. I'm not sure about that Wales England thing. Let's pick that up in the Patreon. I don't know what would be funnier. Let's pick that up in the Patreon. What would be the funnier?
We'll pick up what would be funny. That wasn't like a definitive ordering. It was just the two countries that I probably I care equally less about. We're going to head over to the Patreon now. This is a bit where I have to try and finish up. I'm totally not in practice for this either. Thank you to everyone joining us tonight. Thanks for coming along, dropping some comments, even if you are mistaken in some of them. We will be back next week, probably to preview Georgia, probably to talk all things rugby. You know, let's be honest, rugby union has an ability to absolutely shoot itself square between the toes at every possible opportunity, which we may touch on in Patreon tonight. So if you're a patron, come and join us. We'll see you over there. But for now, it is good night from me, Johnny, Craig, Lisa, and Cammy.
And Gerard Butler.
And Gerard Butler. This is Scotland.
Aye.
Right, now I need to remove all these.